My name is Lori Power. My company is MP Benefits, and I'm a group benefit consultant. Each week, we like to do a version of the shift to catch up, grow up, educate, and lead. This week, Lisa and I are going to have a strategic look back on 2022. And she's going to tell us the reason why we want to strategically look back. I often think of getting lost one time in the airport. It was one of those big airports, and I couldn't even find the sign that says "You are here." And I realized if you don't know where you are, you can't tell somebody where you're going. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, but I think that's one of the reasons why we need to strategically look at where we've come from in the last year in order to plan for the gold digger next week.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Lisa Dobb. My company is a Strong Impact Academy. And just to keep it simple, I help people be better bosses of themselves, their team, and their companies. I do this through executive coaching and leadership training. And really, it's all about building strong company cultures. So I'm very passionate about having goals. And that comes from a personal story of not having goals at one time and basically kind of crashing and burning and not knowing where I was going or what I was doing. So ever since then, I've always made sure that I'm setting goals. And I have kind of a ritual that I do every year. Typically it's between Christmas and New Year's. I'll sit down with some pen and some paper, and I'll just start to think back over the past year. Now, what happens is, and you start to see it in social media right now, where people are like, oh, I can't wait for this year to be over. This has been the worst year ever. And I've seen it more and more since 2020, since the pandemic. But I also still feel like some days it should still be 2020. Like it's this weird time warp with the pandemic, right? So I think the big thing is to be able to kind of sit back and take that look at the year that's been, or even the quarter that's been, right? Like some people will do this quarterly as well. Because you're right, Lori, we need to kind of know where we've come from to know where we're going to go. And the other part of that is we get so busy always looking forward, hustle, 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 that we forget to stop and smell the roses. Right. So, and part of the reason that this happens is, and it's easy to see why, we are all wired with this negativity bias. And that comes from our caveman days where we needed to always know what the danger was around us. And so our tendency is always to pay more attention to the things that go wrong. So we kind of forget the good things that happen. And even if you think about the lessons that you learn, you always seem to learn more when things go sideways, right? It's hard to find the lessons when everything's going really well.
Sometimes you just feel like you've got this black cloud over your head. Do you ever feel like it's just raining all day long? I had a point as I was thinking about coming in here today, and I thought, who am I, Schleprock? It's just, can I even send an email to the correct person at this point? Because you do get bogged down in that negativity.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And that's why, and it's so easy. It's so easy for me to work with clients or even myself and think about, okay, what did I learn in the last year? What happened in the last year? It's so easy to go right to the negative. It's like, well, I lost this client and this happened and this happened. And then it's really easy to get into that space of lack, right? Where you're looking at everything from a fear-based perspective instead of the good things that happen. So I always like to start with 3 good things. What were the 3 good things that happened in the last year? And so I'm going to pick on, because there's just you and Joe here today, I'm going to pick on both of you. Can you each tell me one good thing that's happened to you in the last year?
I'll start by saying that and just as you said that, now we have more people coming in. I'll start by saying what I had previously considered my unique differentiator has, through working with you specifically, I realized was still too broad and actually didn't reflect who I am as a consultant in my business. And I feel very confident now with what my unique differentiator is and how I introduce myself. So I think that is a big win for 2022. How
That's a
about you,
huge
Joe?
one.
It's interesting because I've just been doing a bit of reflecting over the past year in preparation for the new year. And I had a bit of a career shift. Well, going back to what I did historically, and that's been business and executive coaching. And so for me, my win this year was realizing that coaching is something I really passionately care about and enjoy doing. And I just feel now that I'm operating more in my space. So that's a big win for me this year.
Like that.
That is awesome. And you can tell, so even listening to you guys, I love asking people about the good things, and then they start to tell the story. You start to feel that energy shift a little bit. You start to feel that emotion that comes through that, right? And so if you think about it, humans are very goal driven. Everything it's always about a goal. So if you're hungry, the goal is not to be hungry. So the action is you eat, and then you feel good because you're not hungry anymore, right? We're always looking for things to make us feel good. So that's the whole marketing strategies and stuff like that around that instant gratification. It's that, hey, lose weight this fast because then you'll feel better, you'll look better, all of this stuff, right? Like marketing bombards us with that, but and it works because at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for, is wanting to feel good.
Do you ever find, Lisa, that it also sets us, that kind of marketing sets us in a bit of purgatory? And
Totally.
one of my other wins this year has been changing my verbiage. So even when I'm talking to clients and they'll say, well, it's better than nothing, I will stop them and I'll say, that's going to reflect on your corporate culture. If your corporate culture is we're better than nothing, then somebody's going to look for better. So
Yes.
just changing that verbiage to say, this is what we offer, this is why, and this is what makes it great, rather than taking that path of least resistance. But I liked your point about the marketing, because there's so much of that marketing on the, lose weight now, or, do this. It's always future based. And so you have to align yourself with being in a bit of a purgatory and a bit of a waiting. I'll be happy then. No,
Yeah.
be happy now. If
Yeah.
we learn to celebrate these wins, we can be happy now.
And that, right. And that we never think to celebrate the wins, because again, we're striving for that next thing. We're striving for that next thing. So even to say, here are my goals from last year, maybe I didn't achieve all of them, but again, it's that gap in the gain, which is a fantastic book, right? But if you measure from the gain, like where maybe you didn't achieve the goal, but you're further ahead than where you were when you started. And that's what you measure, and that's what you celebrate. Right? Because we're always changing, we're always evolving. And Joe, you've probably seen this in the coaching industry. I get very frustrated, and sometimes I don't even want to call myself a coach, because it's an industry where where we're taught to market ourselves like, you're broken and I will fix you. And I absolutely, no, nobody is broken. Right.
I
And
couldn't agree with you more. I hate that whole approach. It's just reinforcing this lack and this dependency culture that's
yep.
very prominent. And it's such as a coach, it's such a wrong way to position yourself. You're as a coach, I can only coach on the willingness of the individual wanting me to be their coach. So it's not that I can't teach anyone to do anything, but I can allow them to find for themselves, and one can only do that with their permission. So it's certainly not me to repair anyone. I'm just holding the space for them.
Exactly, right? Exactly. I'm glad that you said that. We're aligned. We're going to talk.
I like that, holding the space for them. I really
Yeah.
like that. That's a great line. I like that a lot.
Yeah, because as a coach, that's what you're doing, right? You're creating that safe space, and you're holding that space for them to, you're asking the right questions, you're giving the right information. People don't know what they don't know sometimes. So you're giving them that info to be able to explore and do that in a safe place. So yeah, that's awesome. When we're looking back at the year, we don't want to, I I may have been accused of being Pollyanna some points in my life, right? It's always seeing the bright side of everything. Um, but we want to look at the challenges, we want to look at the low points, because again, that is where we've learned things. But I think the thing that we forget to celebrate when we go through really stressful times and really low times is how we handled it, how we worked our way through that. And we don't celebrate that enough, because, and honestly, what did we do there? We just strengthened our resiliency muscle like nobody's business.
Would you call that framing the learnings?
Yeah.
Framing the learnings, because I have had these conversations where you bust up. One day is just like I'm just gonna get through the day, but the next day, in order to get over it, have to look at what were the learnings, and the learnings themselves become that win.
Yeah.
And to say, okay, well, I did that. Sure, I'm acknowledging I have that responsibility. I did that, but this is what I learned from it, and that learning is my win.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to remember too, like, I always want people to be really careful with that. Like, if you're going through a hard time, if you're having a bad day, if you're just feeling sad today, we have to remember that emotion is energy in motion. It has to go somewhere. You have to let that come out. You have to cry and scream and be angry and do all of the things. There is no such thing as a bad emotion or a wrong emotion. There's just emotions. And they're all normal, right? From the, seeing red rage to complete and utter joy. And it's about, you're right, taking the lesson from that, let that emotion come through and do what you need to do to release it and let it go. But then sit back and go, okay, what happened here? Why did this happen? And you don't want to spend too much time on figuring out I don't want to spend too much time figuring out the root cause. I only want to know enough to figure out how I can not have it happen again. Right. But then celebrate, because if you screw up and you do something that hurts somebody else, and you can go back and you can own that and you can apologize for that, well, celebrate the fact that you were a big enough person to own it and be accountable for it.
What are some of the more common wins when people are looking back and you're coaching them on understanding where they've been in order to move forward where they need to go? What are the more common items that people overlook?
It's the everyday things, right? It's the even the low points. It's that, surpassing their revenue target for the month. And it's like, woohoo, that felt really good. But then they forget about it like a week into the next month. And then it's like, there's not enough. And again, it comes from that, you start to come from that place of fear, from that place of lack. So it's those small little increments, and it's those small little wins, that those little gains towards the goal. Because I'll have clients lots of times say, well, I a personal goal is really easy. I wanted to lose 20 pounds and I lost 10. I failed. No, you didn't. Right? Now you only have to lose 10 more, right? So I think it's the all or nothing approach. And so we constantly talk through what's been good, what's gone well. It's so interesting, because I start all of my coaching sessions with, give me some good news since the last time we talked. That is the hardest question that they will answer in that whole coaching appointment. And I have clients that I've met with like on an ongoing basis for 6 months every week, and they're still like, oh yeah, and I've been trying to think of this too. And I'm like, okay, so if I asked you what your biggest challenge was, they'd be like, well, I have 5. Okay, well, I want to know what was good. Tell me what happened. Tell me what you did with your family in the last week, or right. So I have to really like start to pull on that to have them to even start thinking about the good things in the last week. So when you're talking about in the last year, it's a long look, and I think it's just so easy to forget that. And it doesn't have to be big, crazy things, right? You both had some massive wins. Right? Joe's like, yeah, I figured it out. Coaching's where I need to be, and that's what I want to do. You figured out like, no, I need to get even narrower in what I'm saying and what makes me different. Those are massive wins.
Well, and they don't happen overnight. They're a
No.
constant work in progress, which is why the two of you are coaches, because we as individuals in our own field, I'm a firm believer in coaching, that I only know what I know. And sometimes, coaching just to be accountable to it, just knowing that your clients are expecting every week that they have to tell you something good, because like you say, it's so easy to get bashed down in the negativity. They could probably talk 4 or 5 hours to you about that, but you're stumping them on the one good thing, and you're making them think about this on an ongoing basis. I think that's a strategy in and of itself.
Right. Well, then, one of the first things that I always tell my clients, and whether that's an executive coaching client or a life coaching client, is like, start a gratitude practice. And it's not an attitude of gratitude, it's actually a practice. So every day, like 3 things. What are you grateful for? And when you get into the habit of like, okay, and everybody's like, well, I'm grateful for my family, and I'm grateful for my house, and that's great. That's a great place to start. So then the challenge is what are the other things you can be grateful for? Can you be grateful for the bills that are coming in? Because, hey, yeah, you should be, because especially when you're paying those bills, every time you pay those bills, I'm grateful that I have the money to pay these bills.
That's right. It's the secret sauce of, having a job and not being unemployed.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Or it's the, some days I'm like, I'm just grateful for my pillow today. Right. Or I'm grateful the day's over. And I mean, you want to try and spin it. But the thing is, again, it comes back to that reticular activating system. Right. The more you look at things that are going well, the more you're going to see the things that are going well. The more you look at how terrible things are, the more you're going to see how terrible things are. Our brains don't differentiate. They're just like, oh, you think that's important? We'll let more of that through.
We
Right.
Can I ask you, sorry, just want to ask a quick question. And I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but certainly in the UK, to talk about your successes can be perceived as boasting. So people will dismiss it because they don't want to come across as, oh, look at me, I'm just having a terrific week, I've done this. And the other thing is like, I have clients say, oh, I don't want to say what went well because as soon as I say that, it's going to go bad. So the fear of things going wrong when things are going well stops people celebrating the successes.
Joe, I'm from the East Coast of Canada, and it's like that's how we were brought up. Like you don't want to push the fates there, because there's the other shoe waiting to drop, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking to somebody about this, a mutual friend of Lisa and I, his name is Sanjay Nath, and I said to him one day, I struggle with this. I struggle with exactly what you're saying. And I said, I think it's ego. And he said, I'm going to give you a little secret, and I hope that it sticks. And I'm trying. God knows I'm trying every day. So what he said to me is, confidence is knowing you can do it and do it well, and teach others to do it as well as you. Ego is when you think you're the only one who can ever do it. And he said, so long as you approach your conversations with, I'm confident I can do it, I know I'm replaceable and I'd like to teach you how to do it. That's not boasting, is how he said. That's not ego driven. But I'm so glad you bring that up.
So the other thing, and I completely get that, Joe, because I was, you know, my mom's side of the family is British, and definitely it's like you don't talk about your A's.
No.
You don't be bragging about that stuff, because again, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna come back to bite you in the ass is pretty much what I was told. But it's so interesting that you talk about that. My daughter is in she's in grad school right now, and so she's been applying for different grants and stuff like this to help her pay for her schooling. And she was really struggling with some of the things, because when you're putting these grants out, it's like, what makes you better than anybody else that's applying for this? And of course, you know, she was raised with my whole British upbringing too, where it's like, you know, we know you're smart, you don't need to tell everybody. But the advice that she received in her undergrad from somebody was, write the essays, write whatever you need to do as if you're a middle-aged white man who's entitled to everything in the world. And think about, it's not wrong, right? And I don't want to do that reverse discrimination thing, but seriously, if you think about it, of course I'm entitled to this.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, and I think that we need to
I've
learn
just left
how...
the screen there.
Sorry. But if you think about that, if it's okay to celebrate our wins, it's okay to celebrate the fact that we've worked hard to get to where we are. You know, Lori, you won an award this year that you weren't even really, you know, going, yeah, I won this award, where it's like, but that's okay. Celebrate that, because you won that award. Let people celebrate with you. And let go of the fact that, I think if we learn to not compare ourselves to others, because I think that's what happens, Joe. It's like, oh, Joe, you're a coach. I don't think that you and I should talk to each other because I'm a coach, so you're my competition. Where it's like, well, that's ridiculous, right? It's that collaboration over competition, but also, I want to share the great things that are happening in my world. And I want you to celebrate with me. And then when great things happen for you, I want to celebrate with you. But I think with that whole upbringing, with that whole oppressive, like, oh no, that's going to come back and bite you. Like, don't be doing that. Or again, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it's that foreboding joy. And if you look at Brene Brown's work, when she talks about this, that it's one of the armors that people use for the shame. So it's that being a parent and looking over your sleeping baby and going, oh, I hope nothing happens to you. Why would you think that? Why would you not just be in the moment going, oh my gosh, you're so cute. You know, never grow up, because anyways, yeah, different story.
Well, and that's it, right? Like it's they say, you know, they grow up so fast.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's putting that negative spin on it. Oh, well, you better enjoy it now. Okay, no, I will enjoy it, and I want to enjoy every stage of their lives. And you know, and I also want to enjoy when they're leaving and I get to embark on my next adventure too.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's that, and she talked about that whole, where waiting for the other shoe to drop, where the saying comes from. It was very good. But I think that's why it's important. First, we need to learn to celebrate our wins on our own. And then again, that confidence, I love that definition of confidence, and how the differentiating, how it's not ego, right? When you know you're replaceable, that other people can come and do what you do as well. But if you're confident that you can also do that, right? You know, as coaches, as people, we kind of all share the same message. We just put our own spin on it.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
So, yeah.
So where do we start in anticipation of next week doing a goal digger for 2023, understanding where we are, to come in prepared and say, if somebody is thinking, well, you know what, I'm not sure if I, you know, had any wins last year, what's something we should tell them? Where should they start?
I think it's with the small things, right? If you don't think you had any wins last year, don't let that get you down, right? Plan for some wins next year. Next week, when actually what's going to happen, one of the first things that's going to happen next week for everybody that's in the Zoom room is that in the first 5 minutes, everybody's going to have a list of goals and a list of things that are possibly getting in the way. And then it's about breaking that down and figuring out how to do it. I think one of the things that happens with goals is we set them and forget them.
Yeah.
Right. And then also there's still that whole thing from the pandemic as well, right? So if everybody set new goals in January of 2020, well, we all know what happened by March. And I mean, typically goals are out the window by the end of February anyways, but we all know what happened in March, where it's like, well, there go the goals. So then, then it's treading water. But then it also is like, well, what's the point of setting goals? This pandemic isn't over. There's still all this uncertainty. We still don't know what's going to happen. And it reinforced that waiting for the other shoe to drop, because just when things felt like it was going to be fine, all of a sudden there's more restrictions and everything shut down again. So now you've got a whole bunch of people that are like, what's the point? I don't even want to set goals. I almost think that a year is too long to set goals for, like that 12-week year system, that those quarterly goals and those little win sprints are great. Next week, I'm going to talk about my SHARP goal model, which is really about incorporating goal achieving every single day.
Yeah, this has been great. I like it. It's an eye opener, because I really like aligning with people who understand that it's not easy to celebrate those wins, and it's not easy to say, yeah, I'm the best of the best of the best. Yeah, no, it's a little hard. You guys have a great week. We'll talk to you later.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.